For most of the 2001 season, and early 2000s as a whole, the New York Yankees were the biggest villains in baseball. Fans typically hate seeing the same teams win championships over and over again. And the Yankees won 3 in a row headed into 2001, and 4 out of the last 5. But when they made it into the 2001 World Series, it was a whole lot easier to root for them than anyone could have expected. New York was still reeling from the September 11th attacks, just short of 2 months later, when the 2001 World Series was still going on. The Yankees had made it, and were in the midst of a storybook playoff run. They came back down 2-0 in a best-of-5 series to Oakland, which started the plot of Moneyball, then knocked off the 116-win Mariners for a trip to Arizona to face the 4-season-old Diamondbacks in the World Series. Winning every game in New York put them in a position to win the series, and even after some stumbles in the desert, were a win in the last game of the series away from their 4th World Series championship in a row. And that winner-take-all game was low-scoring and tense going to the late innings. The Yankees tied it at 1 run each with a Tino Martinez single in the 7th. And in the 8th, Alfonso Soriano came to the plate.
Soriano into deep left field. At the wall, Yankees on top 2-1.
A go-ahead home run in the 8th inning of Game 7 of the World Series. If the Yankees lock this down, this becomes one of the biggest home runs ever hit in the history of baseball. And this team is absolutely ready to win one for their city in the wake of its biggest tragedy, maybe making this one the sweetest of them all. But then they lost.
Forward, center field, the Diamondbacks are world champions.
No one remembers Alfonso Soriano nearly having one of the biggest home runs in MLB history. No one remembers what almost was. What goes down in the history books is the Luis Gonzalez walk-off single for Arizona, not the almost forgotten history that came not long before. And that's what this is all about. Things like Soriano's home run that were so close to becoming the most historic moments in all of sports, only to be washed away by something else that took the spotlight and the recognition. If you need one more analogy to understand the premise to go further, let me put it like this. Earlier this past year, Drake and Kendrick Lamar were in the middle of the most high-profile music feud since at least the 1990s, maybe ever. After trading jabs and disses back and forth, the beef came to a head on May 3rd, when Drake dropped a song called Family Matters. Family Matters had some deep cuts, and actually really strong and catchy third verse to end the track, and then about 20 minutes of people thinking all over social media, guys, Drake might have won this. And then, Kendrick dropped Meet the Grams. The next day, Kendrick dropped Not Like Us, one of the biggest songs of the decade so far, and no one remembers the 20 minutes where Family Matters had the buzz of being a possible beef winner. Alright, so, back to sports now. Let's fast forward to 15 World Series later, from that big one in 2001. Nearly 15 years to the day of Game 7 in 01 was Game 7 of 2016. The Cleveland Indians have not won a World Series since 1948. The Chicago Cubs have not won one since 1908. And for most of this game, it seems to be all Cubs. The lead peaks at 5-1 Cubs in the top of the 5th. But then, Cleveland starts to mount a comeback. Up by 3 with 2 outs in the 8th, Chicago turns to Aroldis Chapman out of the bullpen when Cleveland gets their first base runner of the inning. Chapman is one of the game's most dominant relief pitchers, in the middle of one of the most dominant stretches of his whole career. Facing him at this time in a high-pressure spot has to feel like you're going in to fight Omni-Man.
Please.
He doesn't really allow base runners or runs since getting traded to the Cubs that summer. Brandon Guyer hits a double as the first batter Chapman sees and makes the score 6-4 Cubs. Rajay Davis walks up to the plate next, who has a reputation for being a pretty light hitter. He's hitting 7th in the order. He only has 3 years out of 11 in his career hitting above league average, and has never been seen as a big power threat. But baseball is weird. Davis, just wanting to stay alive and get a single probably, chokes up on his bat with 2 strikes and hits a home run. An unexpected hero has brought Cleveland all the way back.
They love me.
The Indians have stunned Aroldis Chapman and the Cubs. They have all the momentum and a clutch home run that will go down in their history books forever. Even with a walk-off win, this would still be something that never gets forgotten. Only, that momentum was stalled by a rain delay. Yes, a rain delay. In the late innings of Game 7 of the World Series that has been one of the most fun games ever played. The Cubs rallied to take the lead back in the 10th inning. Davis actually hits an RBI single in the bottom of the 10th to bring the Indians within 1. Just one batter before the Cubs would get their final out of the series to break their 108-year drought. That's the story of this game, series, and season. Deservedly so for all of them.
What was that? I couldn't understand you. I don't speak second place.
But in another timeline, a light-hitting veteran outfielder getting just enough of a tough pitch off one of the toughest pitchers to save his team's season, that's the thing we'd remember. Almost. 1992 March Madness Tournament, Elite 8, Duke versus Kentucky. Down by 1 with just under 8 seconds to go, Kentucky has the ball and has to score here to keep their season alive. Most likely, a basket here wins the game with how little time there is left. Sean Woods, on the move, totally covered, and with one hand, banks a go-ahead shot that sets the clock at 2.1 seconds to go. Kentucky 103, Duke 102. Duke does get to call timeout and give their players a quick reset to breathe, yes, but they're gonna have to go the entire length of the floor in 2.1 seconds and make a basket to win. 2.1 seconds sounds like no time at all, but it was somehow enough time for Grant Hill to chuck the ball all the way to the free throw line. Christian Laettner catches it, somehow has time to dribble, and hit a turnaround buzzer beater. Duke wins. Unbelievable.
Oh, better luck next time, buddy!
This is now literally nicknamed The Shot, all thanks to Christian Laettner, stealing the game-winning shot moment from Sean Woods. Kentucky goes home, Duke wins the national title 2 games later. You want a bonus basketball one that's way less historically significant, but might be even crazier just in a vacuum? Regular season game here, I know, but it's January 21st, 1994. The Indiana Pacers are tied with the Chicago Bulls as the clock winds down to the final seconds. Reggie Miller pops out, gets open, and drains a go-ahead shot that leaves 0.9 seconds on the clock. 0.9. He takes multiple bows to the crowd in the process. Sure, Michael Jordan isn't here, as he's out getting ready to pursue baseball at this time. Sure, it's a regular season game that doesn't matter at all, but people will remember a Reggie Miller game winner, where he took bows to the Chicago crowd afterwards. Losing right here feels kind of impossible. Maybe 0.9 seconds is enough time for a quick, lucky tip-in right in front of the basket. There's no way it's enough time for a 3. Tony Kukoc, you have got to be kidding me. It's Super Bowl 49. The Seattle Seahawks are trying to pick up their second straight Super Bowl. A huge accomplishment in NFL lore. Down by 4 with roughly 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter to the Patriots. A 2-minute drive to beat Tom Brady and the unbelievably hated New England Patriots would be huge for the legacy of everyone involved. With a little over a minute left in the game and the Seahawks starting to really make something of this drive, Russell Wilson airs it out for wide receiver Jermaine Kearse, and he makes one of the greatest catches in the history of football. I don't even know what the emotions would be here for a Patriots fan. David Tyree makes an unbelievable Super Bowl catch against you and you lose. Mario Manningham makes an unbelievable Super Bowl catch against you and you lose. Jermaine Kearse falls over, makes the catch with his butt squarely on the grass, Al Michaels even thinks it's incomplete at first when he's doing the live broadcast.
Curse, and it's broken up again.
And now, the Seahawks are right there to go take the lead. Odds are, no matter what the touchdown they wind up scoring for the win is, this will be the play. David Tyree's catch is more widely remembered than Plaxico Burress' touchdown later in the drive in the Super Bowl from 7 years earlier, again also resulting in a Patriots loss. I remember watching this one live. Right then and there I was certain this was the craziest catch I've ever seen. I think I still feel this way almost 10 years later, and it was gonna lead to a Super Bowl win. Except, 2 plays later, it didn't. Russell Wilson, at the 1-yard line, threw an interception to Malcolm Butler. The Seahawks lost. The Patriots somehow won after all that. Their first title in 10 years, Brady's 4th ring, and Jermaine Kearse's catch was for absolutely, positively nothing. Unreal. So now what if I told you something very similar happened 2 Super Bowls later, also with the Patriots getting out on the winning end. Super Bowl 51. Patriots are playing against the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons own the beginning of this game, and their lead famously ballooned to 28-3 at one point. But if you look at the start of the moment I'm about to show you, this is a close game again. The Patriots are storming back. That's cute though. The Falcons are still driving down the field with a chance to put themselves in great position to score and put this game totally out of reach. A score of any kind, even just getting into field goal range and making a kick, should ice this for the Falcons for the first Super Bowl win in franchise history. Matt Ryan is gonna go long for Julio Jones, the best receiver in the world and the single best in Falcons history, who is in need of a signature moment.
And Jones with a catch. Phenomenal catch by Julio Jones on the sideline.
Words can't actually describe how crazy this is. This catch takes way more skill and athleticism than the Kearse one does. The Kearse one is crazy because it's amazing that it even happened. Julio Jones making this catch is about as representative of how insane of a receiver he was as you could get. And making this play should be the coolest moment of a Falcons Super Bowl win. Even the comments on the YouTube clip of the catch agree. The problem is, they somehow didn't score. The Patriots scored a touchdown, 2-point conversion, won the coin toss in overtime, and drove down the field to win the game. The 28-3 comeback, or choke, depending on how you look at it, was the story. No one would have ever talked about how close the Patriots were getting if the Falcons just put any more points on the board, and Julio Jones would have had the moment from this game.
That feels so cursed.
It really does. It feels cursed, yeah.
Beyond cursed.
You guys remember the 2022 World Cup final? Like, the coolest game of the ball-kicking sport that has multiple names ever? France was led by one of the best players in the world, Kylian Mbappe, a man brave enough to turn down 1 year of $776 million to go play sports in Saudi Arabia. But before that, he was owning every pitch Qatar had to offer. Down 2-0 in the 80th minute, Mbappe scored a penalty for France. 1 minute later, he tied the game. What an unbelievably clutch, 60-something seconds this was for Mbappe. And then France lost the lead. Argentina scores on this in the 108th minute. They gotta score soon if they want any chance of winning this game.
Mbappe, that was blocked. Was it a hand? It was! Penalty for France! Yes!
You gotta be kidding me. A hat trick for Kylian Mbappe in the World Cup final. If you watch this game, you probably remember and appreciate this performance. But again, not the story of the game. Because the moment from this game you'll remember is Argentina's game-winning kick from Gonzalo Montiel, and Leo Messi winning his first World Cup trophy. Mbappe already got one in 2018 when he was just 19 and was easily the breakout star of that tournament. If he picked up back-to-back World Cups with a hat trick in the second one, he'd be in the conversation for the single best athlete in the world. Truly a game of inches that decides what narratives get ran with and what legends have their photos in the history books associated with big games. But what had to soften the blow for French fans was that Mbappe was still very young. It immediately seemed like he was just going to have a bright future ahead of him with the prospect of picking up more trophies, and he already got the big trophy before. What happens when the team you're starring for hasn't even been to a championship in 61 years? The 2008 Arizona Cardinals had easily the franchise's most successful season since Jackie Robinson was a rookie. One playoff win in the last 60 years before starting a deep playoff run in 2008. And the driving force behind these playoff wins was 25-year-old receiver Larry Fitzgerald. With 3 playoff games coming into the Super Bowl, his stats in all of them were off the charts. And I'll show you right now, it was more of the same in Super Bowl 43 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Cardinals are, obviously, not a team with a lot of historical accomplishments. Any cool, big moment that happens for them is going to stand out way more than it would for most other teams, especially Super Bowl teams, like their opponents in this game in particular. Down by 4, with 2:48 left on the clock, Larry Fitzgerald is going to have his biggest play yet.
Time. Fitzgerald into Steeler territory. 30, 20, 10. Arizona has the lead.
This is even bigger than the Julio Jones catch. It's even bigger than the Jermaine Kearse catch, too. This is a star putting the team on his back, zooming through the entire Steeler defense for a 64-yard touchdown that may give a team that has almost nothing to its name historically their first ever Super Bowl win. That is the recipe for the standout play of a Super Bowl if I've ever seen it. As you've probably learned to assume at this point, turns out it didn't win the game, nor was it even the biggest catch of the game. Santonio Holmes stole that moment from him with under a minute left on the clock. Not enough time for the Cardinals to try and mount a comeback, even if they were able to get 20 more yards out of Fitzgerald. But, alas, the Steelers picked up Super Bowl win number 6 with as photogenic of a great moment as you could get. The Cardinals, just barely, lost out on their first. I have one more moment I want to talk about before I let you go, and this last one is the least like the others. There's no bigger thing that usurps it later on, at least in the actual competition itself, but it is way too good of a moment not to acknowledge. It was only a handful of seconds the other way from being one of the single most iconic things in the history of sports. But I'm willing to bet anyone young enough to have grown up with a cell phone has never known it exists. Chuck Wepner was a 36-year-old boxer out of Bayonne, New Jersey in March 1975. He has never been heavyweight champion. He has never been a boxing superstar. But one night, he is gonna fight the biggest star and the consensus greatest fighter boxing has ever had. Muhammad Ali is the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, and he comes into this fight 45-2 lifetime. Ali came into this fight a 10-1 favorite over Chuck. He finished his career with 4 times being knocked down, ever. One of them, in the 9th round of this fight, was to Chuck Wepner. Sure, this was a body shot Ali got up pretty quickly from, but say it was a bit higher up or anything like that. There's so many minor things that could have changed that make this a whole lot different and a whole lot more memorable. Ali was never knocked out in a fight. Imagine Chuck Wepner knocking out or beating Muhammad Ali to become heavyweight champion. Just beating him at all. He thought he did it when he turned around and Ali was on the ground. He started talking a big game about how he was about to be a millionaire boxing champion. Only problem was, Ali got up, and he wanted to rip Chuck's head off. Wepner almost went the distance with Ali. He was knocked out just 19 seconds short. So, the knockdown is a non-story in the history books. What would have made a hypothetical Wepner win even more interesting is that Ali was very adamant at first that he thought Chuck fought dirty, and the fight was very chippy during its early rounds. Ali even played the Marcus Morris card and said Chuck fought like a woman.
His game is soft. He's soft. It's just, just how he carried it, man. It's just very womanlike.
He eventually chilled out, though, and it's been reported since that Ali had respect for Wepner, and the feeling was mutual from Chuck back to Ali. Ali barely even trained for this fight. He paid the price by taking one of his 4 career knockdowns. You don't know Chuck Wepner's name or this fight, but what stole the show is what Chuck inspired. A man by the name of Sylvester Stallone watched this fight, wrote the script for a little old movie called Rocky, based on Chuck nearly getting through a bout with the best fighter alive, and the rest is history, as they say. Stallone later admitted Chuck was in fact the biggest inspiration for one of America's biggest movie franchises of the 20th century and beyond. That's new for this list, huh? Having your sports moment get overshadowed by the fictional character that the moment inspired? Funny how that all works sometimes. So what have we learned here? I think in sports there's a pretty harsh lesson to take from this. In the history books, there are little to no moral victories. Probably just none. It's a very black and white system of what gets remembered for generations. To the victor goes the spoils. And that's kind of sad. You probably had never heard about some of these moments before they were usurped by bigger things that stole the show. Different people held up trophies, different stories became the story, different boxers became America's underdog sweetheart. It's nice to put the spotlight back on the people and the emotional high points that got buried in history. And because this is obviously an incomplete list, if you have anything that comes to mind like it, all of us at Stark Raving Sports would love to hear more in the comments. If you're new here and like what this is all about, please consider subscribing for more like this. I don't really know how to end this one. Have a good day, I guess. See ya.